Hey everybody, I'm here today to talk to you about 6 driving tips for staying centered in a lane. When you're driving a car in a lane, you should be trying to stay centered, relatively centered in that lane. And I'm going to give you 6 simple tips that will help you do that. Now let's get right to it. Tip number 1 is to drive with 2 hands on the wheel as much as possible. Now, I understand that if you're driving a manual car, if you're adjusting your climate controls, if you're adjusting your radio controls or anything like that, then you have to take one hand off of the wheel to do that, to shift gears, to adjust anything like that. But the key is that when you're done shifting gears, when you're done, adjusting the climate controls and so forth, you got to get both hands back on the wheel. So having 2 hands on the wheel will allow you to stay centered much easier. Even if you have one hand on the wheel in the center, top center right here, you can stay centered like that, but it'll be much easier to stay centered in a lane if you have 2 hands on the wheel, very simply. So adjust your climate controls, switch lanes, and then put your other hand back on the wheel. Tip number 2 is to balance your hands. Now I can have 2 hands on the wheel like this, one at the top, one at the bottom, and I can't really, it's going to be very hard for me to stay centered because I'm so off center with regards to my body language right here. I can even go like this, and I have one hand over here at about the 1 o'clock position and the other hand at about the 9 o'clock position, and it's not going to allow me to stay centered because I'm going to be veering to the left. So you need to balance your hands. If you look at the steering wheel as being symmetrical, a symmetrical circle, so just look at it like this, up to down, left to right, just like that. What you want to do is you want to make sure that both of your hands are equidistant from the 12 o'clock position. So we have 12 o'clock right here. Now, if I held my hands at the 2 o'clock and the 10 o'clock position, that would be a nice, well-balanced approach. I could also hold my hands at the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock position. Once again, it's a nice, well-balanced approach. So balanced hands is another tip for staying centered in a lane while driving, okay? Tip number 3, look ahead. If you're looking right at the car in front of you, then if they maneuver slightly to the right, guess what? You're going to be following them. If they maneuver to the left, guess what? You're going to be following them. If you're looking at the light post to the right of the road, you're going to veer to the right. You will go where you look. It's as simple as that. So by looking far ahead down the lane, and you're still going to see the car in front of you in your peripheral vision, you're still going to see the brake lights, you're still focusing on that car, but you're looking further, you're looking past that car in front of you. Number 1, you're going to get to see a few cars ahead of you when they put on their brake lights. So it's a safer driving method because you get to see, what's going on a few cars ahead of you as opposed to right in front of you. But also, you're going to be looking where you want to go, which is centered down that lane. So tip number 3 is to look a little bit further ahead. You don't have to look, kilometers down the road, but just look a little bit further ahead. Tip number 4 is to make micro adjustments. Now, so many new drivers think that in order to stay centered in a lane and to keep their car straight, they have to put their hands on the steering wheel and they're not allowed to move. They have to hold the steering wheel completely straight. No, because a car will never be perfectly straight. Therefore, if you don't adjust the steering wheel at all, if your car is even slightly to the right, as you drive, eventually you're going to be going into the next lane to the right. So you have to make micro adjustments. So by micro adjustments, I don't mean things like this. This is a turning, and this is a macro adjustment. I mean little micro adjustments. So as you're driving, you're going to just slightly push the wheel to the left, maybe a little bit to the right, just like that. If you look at this hand right over here, you can see these are the micro adjustments that I would make as I'm trying to stay centered in a lane. You're going to be constantly adapting by moving left and right. That's how you stay centered in a lane, by constantly recentering your car. That's the way that it works. And what happens is you're just in the center line. If you can imagine a line right down the middle of the lane, you're just going just a little bit to the side each time, but you're staying in that center line. Tip number 5 is to remember that your vehicle needs to be centered, not you. So right now I'm on the left side of my car, okay? The steering wheel in this car is on the left side of it when I'm looking ahead. Now, if I was trying to keep myself centered, then I would be a little bit to the right in the lane, because for me to be centered in the lane, the car needs to be significantly to the right. But what happens is the car needs to be centered. So that means that when I am positioned in the lane, my body is slightly to the left because the steering wheel is slightly to the left of the center of the car. This seat is slightly to the left of the center line of the car. Therefore, when I am in the lane, my body position is going to be a little bit to the left of the center of the lane. And that, just with some practice, you'll get the hang of that, because it's just a matter of getting used to where you would be in the lane, okay? But remember that. Tip number 6, and this one is actually very important and often overlooked, is to know where the center of the vehicle is. So what I would suggest, look in your car. There's a strong chance that the center console, which you can't see right here, but it's, where the armrest is, the cup holders, and all of the center console, where everything is in the center of the car, runs, directly down the center of the car. Now, in some cars, it might be a little bit more geared towards the driver. There are slight differences, but for the most part, look at the center of your car, the center console, and follow it down to the front. Now, on your hood, chances are your hood is probably symmetrical, meaning you might see some lines in the hood, and those lines will likely be equidistant, meaning like equally spaced from the center of the hood. So you want to just follow a straight line to the center of the front of your hood. That's the center of the car. So when you're driving, that is the center of your car. That's what you're paying attention to when you're driving. You want that to be in the center of the lane. I don't want myself to be in the center of the lane. I don't want this to be in the center of the lane. I want the center of the car to be in the center of the lane, and that's why I need to know where the center of the car is. And that's basically it. In this video, I've gone over 6 driving tips for staying centered in a lane. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment. What are some other tips for staying centered in a lane while driving? And of course, be sure to subscribe for more great car and driving videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.